Penguin Random House Canada Audio presents Sucker Punch by Scaachi Koul, read for you by the author. For Mom, obviously. Samsara, cycling aimlessly through existence. I liked being antagonized by him. He knew exactly what to do. Karolina Václaviak, Life Events. Parvati stands in flames. It was boring to talk to God. Any of them, really. At the mandir, my mother would drag me around the main hall to pray to whoever was on deck. We went on Sunday mornings, my sole childhood obligation and my most dreaded one. Forced into stiff salwars, pushed to play with kids I didn't like, required to eat Indian food for lunch, meaning 2 square meals of my day dedicated to rice and dal, and here's where I would shudder for maximum effect, bindi. Prayer was a kind of one-way conversation from what I could tell from my mother's performance of religion. The temple was in a remote part of town, a burned orange building with not even a nearby Max to sneak off to for a 5-cent Coke bottle candy. Inside, the hall was awash in a pink carpet with a red runway to the main deity statues. And, of course, the large, clear donation box where you could see how much or how little our congregation cared about the gods. My dad entered our mandir with the authority of someone gracing a party with his presence. He walked gut first into the room and sat on the men's side of the carpet, ready for some forgettable chit-chat and maybe a quiet nap in the back of the hall. Of all the issues I had with going to mandir, I was mostly offended that my much older brother never had to perform any penance. "Why don't you have to go to temple, but I do?" I asked him when I was 6 and he was 18, when I was several feet shorter than him, my frontal lobe still predominantly soup. "Just blessed, I guess," he said, pushing me aside and going to his room, then barricading the door to keep me out. And so, my mother would cart me around the mandir to perform the entire family's worth of religious ablutions. It was a lot of pressure. First, we'd visit Ganesh, who was addressed on matters of finances and luck and prosperity. My mother would leave the requisite prasad, almonds, sugar cubes shaped like uncut diamonds, an unpeeled orange, a lit candle. Hands pressed together, she'd mumble to herself something intended just for her and the inexplicably Caucasian elephant she was talking to. Then she'd leave flower petals at Sita's and Krishna's feet, a couple whose marriage was cemented by Sita's dedication to her husband and to her purity. My mother would pull her chunni, kosher for a dupatta, over her head, pious in the same form. My eyes would wander while hers were closed. We only lingered for a minute or two per deity, but they were the longest minutes of my life. I was not permitted to eat the sugar cubes while I waited, like an obedient, bored horse. But the main event was at the display at the front of the hall, behind the donation box at the end of the red carpet. A large installation the size of a small playground, on white steps that were cleaned daily, gleaming under spotlights and posed in front of draped curtains with gold tinsel sewn in. There were always fresh flowers and fresh fruit. "Do they spend all the money on coconuts and grapefruit?" I asked once, which made my dad laugh, meaning I would not get in trouble even if my mom pinched my arm like a crab. The display presented a few deities showered in gold and fine silks, white skin, why were they always white, and red lips. Among the exhibit were 2 of the most revered gods according to my mother's prayers, Shiva and Parvati, parents to Ganesh, the center of the religious universe my mom was passively teaching me. Here, at the feet of this altar, my mom would kneel down, grabbing my arm and yanking me down too, before stuffing a few bills in the donation box and then pressing her forehead against the carpet. I pantomimed it with her and thought about how the soles of my feet and the crack of my butt were exposed. I was convinced that, surely, one of the Pugdy boys I had a crush on would take this opportunity, in my faux worship, to kick my ass. Literally. What was she saying over there, curled over her knees in a kind of child's pose, muttering to herself again? I'd lift my head up for a glimpse at the gods and always lingered on Parvati's face. She looked blissed out, like someone who knew the world's secrets. Her altar was full of crisp apples, marigolds, waxy cashews, holy water. Parvati would have known what my mom was saying. My mom was talking to her all the time. Shiva is one of the principal Hindu deities, one part of the Trinity including Brahma and Vishnu. Like a lot of the gods portrayed as men in Hinduism, Shiva is cool as all hell. He's benevolent but feared, portrayed bare-chested with several arms, one holding a trident, a snake wrapped around his neck, hair in a very trendy half-updo, a look of peace in his third eye, but with a promise of brutality if forced. Shiva is known as the Destroyer. He kills demons and protects the universe. I've never understood how modern Christianity became the dominant religion worldwide, when Hinduism offers more gods to choose from, more stories of triumph and deviancy, and a lot of barrel-chested half-men with thick thighs and stoned eyes. What more could you need? Parvati wanted to marry Shiva. Her parents, however, did not approve. He had no money, no house, my mom told me. He put ashes on his forehead. He was wearing, and here my father leapt into the conversation as if he had been commanded to by the devil. A loincloth! Nothing else, just kacha. Disgusting, he said, before unhinging his jaw in order to eat an egg, as he does every morning. So he's a loser, I said to my mom, after she outlined the countless ways that Shiva didn't make a quality son-in-law despite being a literal god. None of the gods are losers, my mom snapped at me. She wanted to get him, and so she got him. As a show of her devotion, Parvati stands in lengthy meditation for Shiva. In my mom's version, she meditates for 14 years until she's given a boon, meaning a divine blessing from the gods, one that allows her to marry him. But in all my mom's stories, Hindu gods were their most generous selves. They never punished people, they only offered rewards. My mother never talked of a hell or of getting locked in a reincarnation cycle with no karmic release. 14 years sounds like a long time until you delve into more traditional texts, which suggest that Parvati lived in devotional meditation for thousands of years, standing with a foot in 5 different types of fire. Some versions say that she isn't meditating for a boon in order to marry Shiva, but is instead performing this meditation as penance. In one story, Parvati was too playful with Shiva, one of the most powerful forces in the world. When she teased him, closing his eyes in jest, the world stopped still. Hinduism is confusing in this way, depicting the gods as inherently human in their drive for love and marriage and romance, and then celestial in the way that they can't sleep at the risk of the world collapsing. Maybe that's more apt than I realized. Marriage has always felt high stakes, like if you get it wrong, the universe could stop still on its axis. Parvati's is a story about selfless devotion, proof that time you spend dedicated to someone else, to your husband, is time well spent. It was also a story I didn't pay too much attention to, even though Parvati was everywhere my mom was. In the makeshift temple she built in their guest bedroom, Parvati and Shiva sit together as small statuettes. After my mom showers every morning, she visits their altar there, putting a few carnation petals on their feet or a tuni nearby as an offering. In fables, my mom told me about all the gods, but I could barely stay awake for her stories about the women. While Vishnu gets to control time and Shiva gets to control space and Ganesh handles gold and Hanuman is a warrior monkey, the women are relegated to holding lotus flowers and weeping over their husbands. Why would I need to listen to stories about Parvati at all? I had been raised around women who did nothing but stay devoted to their husbands, even if they didn't necessarily deserve it. My parents are in their early 70s, and still my mother makes my father every shred of food he eats. She sits dutifully by his side while he takes his afternoon naps. She folds every quarter-inch of fabric he wears, loincloth or kacha. I had already seen what it was like to stand in devotional meditation for 14 years, or for 1,000. It looked about the same to me, endless, with limited reward at the end. Soon, I'd come to my parents with my own plea for marriage. Like Parvati, I promised that I knew what I was doing, and like her parents, mine did not approve. I dug my heels in, my own loud form of meditation to prove my devotion. A few weeks before my wedding day, my mother sat with me in a quiet part of the house that she raised me in and asked me a question I could never answer. "Are you sure?" I said yes, because I wanted to be sure. She gave me the boon I asked for, but I couldn't remember why I asked for it in the first place. Growing up, I spent a lot of time following around my neighbor, Lana, like a sick dog in our suburban cul-de-sac. She was 2 years older than me, her brother a year younger, and I felt inexperienced and foolish compared with both of them. Everything their family did seemed in diametric opposition to mine, and I envied it all. Their whole lives seemed neat, like their life events would be tidily folded.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?